And tax season is underway, and for the first time, Americans are filing their returns since the new tax law, that's the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, was implemented last year. But despite some of the news that there are lower refunds, Americans are still hopeful that they'll be getting big returns this year. And if you are fortunate enough to receive a return, what's the best way to spend it? Well, we're joined now by Joe McLean, Managing Director of the investment firm Intersect Capital. So Joe, tell us, if you get a refund, what is the top way you should reinvest that?
And every time I hear that term refund, I remember a moment when I had a young professional athlete who just started making a lot of money. He said, "Why do they call it a tax return? They never seem to return anything back to me." But with that theme, with some of the money coming back, one of the things we've tried to do is get clients to categorize that refund into 3 different ways. First is to, let's pay off some debt. And let's get more specific with that and pay off debt maybe that you have with some of your friends or family. That's something you never want money to get in the way of that. So if you have
your outstanding Venmo payment,
if it's a couple $100, pay that off. And then once you do that, start looking at some of the institutional debt you may have with credit cards. Focus on those higher interest rates and pay that down. Once you do that, I think it's important to take a little bit of the money and invest in some experiences. Literally put the word fun back in refund and take a trip. Go with your friend or a spouse. But when you do that, I think it's important to reflect on 2018. And we always want to ask 3 different questions for that time period. First is, what did it cost to be me in 2018?
Wow, this is so existential.
Not just
this is so beyond finances.
Well, I mean, think about it. We all kind of know how much we made, but do you know how much you spent?
Right.
Too much.
And so, second question then is, what was the worst financial decision you made in 2018? Think about that for a second. And then lastly, what was the best financial decision you made? And then when you're having that enjoyable experience, you can start reflecting on, how do I make 2019 even better, right? So now you're paying off some debt, you're investing in an experience, and lastly, take a little bit more money and put it away for an emergency rainy day fund. And if you can, have a couple extra dollars, start investing into your future for potential financial freedom.
I'm a little surprised that saving wasn't, your first answer right out of the gate, simply because a lot of Americans view their tax refund essentially as their savings account. If they're required to save throughout the year and they can get it back without a penalty, unlike what you would experience if you had an IRA or a 401k, right? And so considering that so much of your paycheck essentially is being saved via a tax refund, in some instances, some research says about 10% of your take-home pay, why then should people first go to splurge on these fun things, as you were saying, instead of really putting that money into a savings account and trying to hold it over to the next year?
So I think it's a great question, and I think that whole concept of pay yourself first should always be there. That's a timeless principle. But I think we also have to first get out of debt. We know most of Americans have some level of debt, whether it may be with their friends or it may be with credit cards and so on. So if we can focus on getting out of debt first, that's our first step to moving towards financial freedom. I think savings is a great thing to do, but at the same time, and I'm a financial advisor, I want people to save, but I also want them to live a life and live a rich life and enjoy some of those experiences at the same time.
I also think you have an advantage because you do advise clients in the NBA, PGA, MLB. Right. We're talking about high net worth individuals. Right. Yeah. Amazing. Thank you so much.
Joe McLean, Managing Director, Intersect Capital. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Joe.